Hi, my name is Andrew Hasebroock, and I grew up in a half-Christian home where my mom was a Christian, but my dad was not. And so my mom would bring me and my siblings to church, and at one of those church services, somebody told me that I could have Jesus live in my heart. So he said, all you have to do is ask. So I did, and I remember that moment very specifically. But growing up in my house was also walking on eggshells because of my dad's explosive anger. So I grew up knowing that God was with me, but I also grew up with a dad who was ready to explode at any moment. So I grew up to avoid him. And throughout middle school and high school, I lived kind of however I wanted to, avoiding my dad, God on the back burner. But things really came to a head with my dad when I was a senior in high school. We had a big blowout. Everybody left the house except for my dad. And we kind of snuck back into the house in the evening. Shortly thereafter, my mom made the really difficult decision to rent a U-Haul, and we packed all our belongings into it. And when my dad got home that night, he came home to an empty house and divorce papers in the mailbox. I was in a pretty bad place in my life at that time as well. I had just graduated from high school. I was going to college for the first time. I broke up with a longtime girlfriend, and my parents were getting a divorce, and I had nowhere to live. But despite that bad time, I knew God was telling me, you have to forgive your dad. If for anything, for your own sake, so that you don't allow bitterness to fester in your heart. And despite God telling me that, I didn't talk to my dad for about 3 years. It wasn't until I transferred to the University of Florida, where I like to say God really got a hold of my life, and I started reading the Bible a lot more. And I came to Romans chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, and it says, therefore you have no excuse, you who pass judgment on someone else. For whatever point you judge someone, you are condemning yourself. For you who pass judgment do the same things. And I knew God was telling me through that verse, Andrew, your dad has sinned against you, and he's inflicted wounds on you, some wounds that you have tried to heal yourself, that I have had to reopen and heal them properly. But you sinned against your dad just as much as he sinned against you. And he was right, because I did, because I hated my dad. And that hate only grew as I grew. So I finally reached out to my dad, and through these last 20 years of reaching out to him, we've had dinners here and there, and our relationship is still fairly tenuous. I don't walk on eggshells around him anymore. And I would like to say that he has softened his heart, and lo and behold, he's a Christian, but he's not. But it's taken me a long time to admit this, but I wish I had a good dad. But the truth of the matter is, I have the best father in the world.